This is the Hermida Audio Mosferatu, and in my opinion, it is the most underrated overdrive pedal of all time. Today I'm going to tell you how I found this pedal, why I love this pedal, and then I'm going to show you how I use this pedal on my pedal board. My name's Cole, I make videos about music and gear. If that interests you, please consider subscribing to the channel and following me on my Instagram page at colg.music. So what is the Mosferatu? Well, honestly, that was my biggest question when I got this pedal. I really liked how it sounded, but I knew nothing about this pedal or Hermida Audio at all, honestly. So I did some digging online and uncovered some information about it. Basically, this pedal is what inspired Hermida Audio's biggest pedal, the Zen Drive. So here's the story. Alfonso Hermida, the creator of Hermida Audio, was a big Robin Ford fan. Apparently he wanted to capture Robin's smooth Dumble overdrive sound into a pedal, and eventually he did with the Mosferatu. He eventually sent this pedal to Robin, and Robin really liked it, but he had a few tweaks for it. He said that he wanted there to be less gain for the pedal and that he wanted it to be a bit brighter. So then Alfonso tweaked the circuit and came up with a whole new pedal, the Zen Drive, because he described Robin Ford as a very Zen guy. And honestly, that's all the information I could find about this pedal. I went on Internet Archive, I looked through Hermida Audio's old website, I looked through old blog posts, forum posts, and I could find nothing. I even tried to reach out to Alfonso, but I couldn't get a hold of him. So that's kind of the story behind this pedal. So we can assume that this pedal is essentially a Dumble in a box. So how did I end up with the Mosferatu? Well, honestly, it was a bit of a journey. A few years ago, my friend Nick and I went on a guitar amp buying adventure. Nick was going to buy a vintage Fender Bandmaster and wanted me to come with him out of town to meet the guy. So of course I said sure, and we went to the guy's place, and he was a super chill dude and had a lot of cool gear. And one of the pedals he had was the Hermida Audio Mosferatu. In fact, he owned two of them because he told us it was such an amazing overdrive pedal. Nick ended up trying the Mosferatu and really liked it, so he ended up buying the Bandmaster and the Mosferatu, and I didn't buy it because I didn't really like how it sounded when I played, so instead I bought a Wampler Plexi Drive from the guy. But fast forward a few years and Nick wasn't using the Mosferatu, and he was telling me that he was thinking about selling it. And I always love trying out any gear that I can, and I asked him if I could try it out for a few days, and he said sure. And when I tried it out, I really didn't think I was gonna like it at all, just given my past experience with the pedal, but the moment I plugged it into my Mesa Boogie Fillmore 50, something just clicked. It sounded so good and I loved the sound. I literally texted Nick right away that I was going to buy the pedal because I was so excited with how it sounded. To me, it was the first pedal I'd ever tried that had come close to dethroning the Greer Lightspeed, my all-time favorite overdrive pedal. I liked this pedal because it had a different characteristic and it really complemented the Lightspeed a lot. So now let me show you how I actually use the pedal on my pedal board. All right, so I have my pedal board set up here and I'm going to show you how I use the Mosferatu. So typically I use it in three different ways: as a low gain boost, as a mid to high gain overdrive, and then as a stacked overdrive with my Greer Lightspeed. The low gain boost sound I typically use for rhythm guitar and the odd lead guitar line that has some effects on it. I really like this sound because it just adds a tiny bit of overdrive to my sound and just helps me cut through in a mix a little bit better, whether that's a recording mix or a live performance mix. It just helps me stand out a little bit more and the EQ just brightens everything up nicely. One thing I love about the Mosferatu is just how tight and focused the overdrive sounds, especially compared to my Greer Lightspeed, which has a really open sound. I love that open sound. I love the Greer Lightspeed, but it's nice to have a contrasting pedal on my pedal board. And that's why I think the Mosferatu works really great for rhythm guitar, especially at the low gain settings. So let me show you how my guitar sounds without the Mosferatu. I'm running into my quad Cortex using a capture of my Mesa Boogie Fillmore 50 clean channel. So now what I typically do with my Mosferatu is I have my volume at around 1 o'clock, my gain set to around 9 o'clock, and then the tone knob is super dependent on what guitar I'm playing and what genre of music I'm playing. I'll have it honestly anywhere set from basically 0 all the way up to 2 o'clock with my standard scale and standard tune guitars. But if I'm using my baritone guitar, I sometimes will have it cranked all the way up. But I'll explain that more in a bit with my actual baritone guitar. But right now I'm going to have it set to 0, and you'll hear how it sounds right now. Without So it's just adding a little bit of brightness, even at the 0 tone, because I use a really bright guitar amp sound. It's not doing too much for me, at least at this setting, but you can hear it just makes everything sound a little bit nicer in the mix. Now let me put it at, we're gonna put it at 9 o'clock the tone just so you can hear some difference, and you'll hear it's a little bit brighter. Now 12. So now typically when I'm performing live, I'm not just using the Mosferatu on its own. I'll have some other effects with it. So I've turned on the HX1 and I'm using a script phaser sound, the Keeley Halo for some delay, and the Keeley Hydra for some reverb. It just cuts through really nicely, and with the tone knob higher up, the neck position just really cuts through good. I'm not exactly sure the tone EQ curve, if you will, but it works really great. Now let me switch to my baritone and show you how I use this sound. So I got my baritone here, and I'm going to show you how I set the Mosferatu as a boost, because it also functions as an EQ for this guitar. Because I love this guitar, it's amazing. It may be my favorite guitar, I don't know. I don't really have a favorite guitar, but I play and drop G tuning, so the pickups just kind of sound flubby. So here's what it sounds like without the Mosferatu. And this is with fairly new strings. It sounds good, but it's just not cutting through very well. And live, it will not cut through at all. So I keep the tone knob on the Mosferatu between 3 o'clock and max, just because it serves as an EQ for this guitar, because I will use my Boss Street E7 with this and just cut 100 hertz and boost 6.4K and 3.2K, but being able to do it all in one pedal is great. So here's how the Mosferatu sounds with the tone all the way up, the gain at 9 o'clock and the volume at 1 o'clock. So that tone helps the baritone out a ton, and even in the neck position, which is super muddy on this guitar, it just cuts through great. If I go without the Mosferatu. When I'm using my baritone, I love to use a lot of effects with it, especially harmonic tremolo. That's my absolute favorite effect with the baritone, and it can definitely get muddy, but this pedal also helps clean that up. So now I've turned the harmonic tremolo on my Hydra, and I have my delay on my Halo, and it sounds like this. Alright, so now let's look at the mid to high gain setting that I use with the Mosferatu. And honestly, you'd be surprised with how much gain's on tap with this pedal. Robin Ford wasn't lying. There's probably a bit too much, at least for me personally, even though the max gain sound doesn't sound bad at all. It's just kind of a sludgy sound, and it's not what I'm looking for, but I could totally see someone else really digging it. But for me, when I'm setting up the gain on the Mosferatu, I like to have it set between 12 and 2 o'clock. There's still a ton of clarity there, and I think that just sounds best for my playing style. As for tone, once again, it's super just dependent on what guitar I'm using or what style I'm chasing. I'll have it set once again from 0 all the way to 2 o'clock, and same for the baritone, it can be set all the way to max again. I just kind of mess around with it and see what works best for the song. But anyways, I have the tone at 0 now, the gain is at 1 o'clock, and the volume's at 1 o'clock. Now I'm going to move the tone to 12 and use a neck pickup, and you're going to hear it cuts through great. so I've dialed in a solo tone here. I have the tone set to 9 o'clock, my Keeley Halo's on again, and then I have my Hydra on for reverb, and here's what it sounds like. There's not too much bass in that, and it really cuts through nicely in the mix, and especially performing live. Alright, so I got my baritone guitar again, and pretty much I approached the mid to high gain sound the same way I approached the low gain boost. Basically, I have the tone anywhere between 3 o'clock and cranked all the way. I'll tend to not go full all the way tone, just because it's a little even too bright with this guitar, or sometimes it gets a bit shrill. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Right now I have it set to 3 o'clock. The gain set to 2 o'clock, and the volume set to 1 o'clock, and it sounds like this. Now I'll add some delay and reverb, once again courtesy of the Halo and the Hydra. The last way I approach using the Mosferatu is stacking it with the Greer Lightspeed. I love stacking pedals, and these two pedals stack really well together. Stacking pedals is great because you kind of get the best of both worlds from each pedals. It's kind of like miking a guitar amp with two different microphones. You get different frequencies with each, and when you combine them together, you get a more full sound, and it just sounds better. What I like about stacking the Mosferatu and the Lightspeed is that with the Lightspeed, you get that fullness, and with the Mosferatu, you get that tightness, and together, you get both of those together, which is great. So what I have right now is the Mosferatu. It's set at around 11 o'clock, the tone. So with the Mosferatu right now, I have the gain set to around 11 o'clock, the tone set to 9 o'clock, and the volume set to around 1 o'clock. And then with the Greer Lightspeed, I have the gain set to around 12 o'clock, the tone set to around 10 o'clock, and the volume set to around 2 o'clock. And it sounds like this. That sounds really good. I may mess around with the settings. In fact, I actually would mess around with the settings if I was soloing. So now, let's add a little bit more gain on the Mosferatu. It just sounds really good. It's a great lead sound. I can also use it as a boost, so if I turn down the gain on both of them. Honestly, if you take away anything from this video, I recommend you try and stack the Overdrive pedals you have, because there's so many different sound combinations you may be missing by not doing it. But honestly, I love this pedal so much, and I'm super grateful Nick sold it to me. It's been an amazing addition to my pedal board, and it's really helped shape my tone, and I love it so much. When I think about this pedal, honestly, I get a bit bummed out. Not because I don't like this pedal, I love this pedal, I think it's clear that I love this pedal, but just because that this pedal has been forgotten. And it makes me think about all the other great pedals that have kind of just been forgotten or faded away over time because they weren't in the cultural zeitgeist anymore. It's kind of wild to think for every King of Tone or Greer Lightspeed or JHS Color Box, there's so many other pedals that are really great and just as good as those pedals that kind of just get forgotten with time, and it bums me out, honestly. So what I would love for you guys to do is comment your favorite pedals that you think are overlooked by the general public, and I'm going to see if I can do videos on them and kind of document these kind of forgotten pedals, because I really do believe these older pedals deserve a second life. If you like the sounds of the Mosferatu in this video, I highly encourage you try and seek one down on the used market. They don't go for too much money. I paid around $100 Canadian for mine. If you can find one, especially for that price, definitely get it. It's an amazing pedal and I really think you'll love it. But anyways, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel and following me on my Instagram page at coleg.music. Once again, thanks for watching. My name's Cole and I'll see you in the next one.